And so before we get into this debate, please, L'Kavod Rav, esteemed rabbi in America, please give your message over to your haters. I'm going to give you the mic.
Good evening, Adam, and all the listeners. Of course, you know how it is as a group of people, anti-Semite, neo-Nazis, the way you want to define them. They're looking for someone that has a large audience, and they try, through his platforms to spread their anti-Semitism. And the problem is like this. I don't mind anyone would say anything they want as long as they stick to the details and to the truth. The problem with these people is that they are serious deceivers. They bunch of scammers. They take a little half a minute from one part of the lecture and another minute from another part, and they put fake headlines, and they convince their audiences that I say one thing, which I say the exact opposite, and it happens again and again and again, nonstop. I just give you an example. The last few days ago, Tucker Carlson, he was sitting with two black guys, I don't know who they are, in a show. Someone sent me a clip, and they show over there, it said the two guys saying to him that I promote genocide against Christians, all kinds of nonsense like that. And they show a clip that I spoke in one of the lectures, that I said that according to the Torah, when God gave the Torah to the Jews, the warning over there is to all humanity, not just to the Jews and to the Gentiles, that are not allowed to worship any idol. And any Jew or Gentile, I say clearly, Jews and Gentiles, worship idols, according to the Torah, it's a death penalty. Now, I also say that there's no executions for 2,000 years, as you all know, since the temple was destroyed. The Sanhedrin is no longer in effect. No one is allowed to execute anyone, not murderers, not idol worshippers, not desecrators of the Sabbath. There's few other sins that the Torah gave a death penalty. And I said that we have no say here. We cannot execute anyone. Therefore, the only one who decides what to do to the sinners is God himself. So that part, of course, they don't show. And I speak about the world to come. I say that Christians don't have to become Jews. All they have to do is to be righteous Gentiles. All Jews and righteous Gentiles, when they die, they go to heaven. If they are sinners, they have to pay for their sins unless they repent. They remove all of that. And I put in a headline that I said that according to the Torah, there are about 6 billion people. Muslims are not idol worshippers. They believe in one God, and the God that created the world, the God of the Torah. But I say everybody else who worship idols, worship all kinds of man-made idols, or worship JC in Christianity that said that he's God, you have to pray, and you don't go directly to the real God, the creator of the world. That's already a violation of the Torah for Jews and for Gentiles. Now, the way they show it is like I have anything personally against the Christians. Nothing. It's all baloney. I don't have anything against anyone. I teach Torah, and I teach it precisely as it's written. I'm not a politician. I don't have my own agendas. I only teach what God told us in his Torah. That's it. First, I prove that the Torah is divine. It can never be written by a human being. After people understand by watching my film Torah and Science, they see that you cannot argue with that film. It's 4 hours of evidence, one proof after the other. Everyone who watched that film, Jews and non-Jews, are 100% convinced that the Jewish Torah that was given to the Jews in a public event, it can never be written by a human being. Only the creator of the world was able to write such a book. And once you know that, you have to just read what's there. You don't even really need me for that. I just bring it to the people who are too lazy to open and read themselves. So any Jew and any Gentile that would read in the Torah how much God hates idol worshippers, how much he's angry with idol worshipping, as the scene of the golden calf, when they were dancing around the golden calf, thousands of people died. There was a disaster. It's written in the Talmud that every generation we suffer from that sin. And until this moment. Why? Because there is tolerance to idol worshipping. We are not talking against Americans and Europeans or Arabs or Chinese. That's not the issue here. It's here. In politics, everybody argue about nationality, land, wars, all of that things. That's not what I'm interested in. I am interested to teach the original book of God and to prove that everything that came after, it's all fake. It's nothing to do with the creator of the world. The books that came after, such as Christianity and Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism and all these religions, they are not from the creator of the world. They contradict the original book of the Torah. They have many, many human errors in them, and that's what I'm specialized in. Now, these Nazis, what they do is they say that according to my lecture, they put an headline that I actually call for the death of 6 billion people. The opposite. Every day we pray 3 times a day that God will put peace on the land, and we pray for the Gentiles as well. We write clearly for the Gentiles that are righteous, for all the people. So this is just an example of what kind of liars these people are. They have in them. They have zero dignity. They have no respect, no self-respect to stand and to know that you lie and put an headline to thousands or to millions of people and make propaganda that we call for the death of people. It's nonsense. It's all lies. And we call them, actually. We call them for debate. We send a message to Nick Fuentes and to Tucker Carlson and to a few other ones. Of course, all afraid. They don't have the guts to debate. I'm still calling them right now in this podcast now. Any one of them that is brave enough to face the truth, I'm going to show the whole world what kinds of liars they are. We will show what I really said and what they claim I said. And everybody will see that the wasting time on those people, it's nonsense, it's stupidity. Why would you follow a liar? Why would you follow someone that is but a dirty politician who takes the truth and twists it 180 degrees and present it as the opposite of what the rabbis say? So that's basically, in general, what's been going on in the last few days.
So I'm really grateful for that, Rabbi. And, I wanted to give you that space to call these people out. I think it's very, very that we get the word out and that people understand exactly
So in theory, we should be looking forward to a list of debates with anti-Semites. And Adam Green, at least, has the courage of his convictions as an anti-Semite to be the first to appear with Rabbi Mizrachi. Will there be any Christians? Will there? I've actually asked E. Michael Jones if he will be debating Rabbi Mizrachi. And he said no, that he would be casting pearls before swine. I was actually surprised because I thought E. Michael Jones was looking for Jews to debate with, and I know he's spoken to Duvid, and I know he's spoken to Charles Moskowitz, who are Reform Jews, though Duvid is on a rather bizarre trip of claiming to be a Hasidic Jew, but really his mother is Reform, and his father's Presbyterian, I think. So he is of mixed parentage, making him a mamzer. And also he's now a Hindu, so we're all a bit confused by his blend of religion. So although he has had a rabbinic education, he can't really be taken seriously on anything. And I know when Daniel Hockey Cart Jew was looking for Jews to debate with, the best he could do was Duvet. And at the time, I remember trying to get Rabbi Mizrachi to appear on Daniel Hockey Cart Jew, the Muslim skeptic. That's his YouTube channel name. So my predictions have been wrong, but I think this represents progress. The fact that Michael Jones has said he won't debate Rabbi Mizrachi means that he doesn't really want to debate a Jew who really knows what it's all about. He just wants to debate Reform Jews who are weak in their convictions and weak in their knowledge of what they're really supposed to believe. And talking about those with weak beliefs, we'll have to talk about Christians and how likely it is that there will be Christians prepared to debate Rabbi Mizrachi. After all, there's Christian YouTubers, big business, right? Big business for weak white men who want to stay in their echo chambers, or moronic white men who think Orthodox Christianity is the way, and mendacious white men who want to go with Christianity until it crashes and burns, even though they have adult children. It is really ironic that I, of all people, care to try to inform these pathetic people who are even now talking about dumb movies they've seen. Imagine, Jews have their Torah and weak white men who don't know what they're supposed to believe talk about dumb movies they've seen, because that's the only way they can relate to each other. Do you like this band? Do you see this movie and did you like it? And if so, you're one of my friends, right? That's the only pathetic way they know to relate to each other. And this is basically TLC all the way. They don't know what the hell they're supposed to believe. And BVK won't tell them because, well, I guess he doesn't feel confident in his authority to tell them anything. He is merely a Calvinist pastor after all. He doesn't even feel confident enough to rando me. Because in his mind, to be randoed, to rando someone is to ask them, tell me about the home you grew up in. And then encourage this emotional spill of, all the tragedies of your pathetic little life, all the mistakes you make, and basically the showing of the wounds to members of the TLC so that people like you. And this is a modern form of showing your wounds that Corey Lane has particularly objected to. And I think he was right to do that. If I have, as a warrior, brought success in conquest to my people, why should I show my wounds? But it worked for a while in the Roman Empire, in the Roman Republic, and then it fell out of fashion. I expect real men to consider my propositions and evaluate them on whether they are in harmony with truth and logic. But these weak white men in TLC, they can't do it. They have to like it, right? They have to like my propositions. They have to like me, and my contempt for them increases day by day with their stubborn inability to understand what I say. The college educated men, some of them have gone to grad school, but they appear not to be able to understand what the hell it is I'm saying. And PVK refuses to give them direction or guidance. He just wants to stick to his tell us about the home you grew up in. Tell us about the broken home you grew up in, and tell us about the terrible experience of your life so you can grovel before members of the TLC for tea and sympathy and say, you're just like them. Pathetic and stupid and scared and confused, and then they'll like you. That's hardly the recipe for success. But that is what PVK is about. If he wants to milk these weak beta males of their time and their money, it's not much. What is it? $5 or slightly more. You can afford it. The beta males can still afford it. And in the meantime, stay within their bubble of ignorance and talk about dumb movies that they like while their imperial war machine begins. World War III. It's typical, isn't it? But this is what you call peasant mentality, right? I think a few of them know what I'm saying. A few of them, have this sense of uneasiness. And recently there was an explosion of talking about politics, but really just still sneering at Tucker Carlson, who's the only independent journalist in the entirety of the Western world. The only one. So I would encourage Rabbi Mizrachi to talk to Christians, or at least give contact a few of them, and then say, well, they wouldn't get back to me, they wouldn't talk to me. People like Gavin Ortland and even Paul van der Clay and what's his name, the one who talks to that liberal Jew and neocon, Sam Harris, the one who talks to him, who's a Christian nationalist. So let's plan Rabbi Mizrachi's tour of duty. He should, of course, challenge all the anti-Semites and say, E. Michael Jones won't talk to me, but isn't he the biggest, baddest anti-Semite? And, but hasn't he also talked to Jews? But it's only non-rabbi Jews like Duvid and Charles Moskowitz, who is really the worst interviewer I have ever encountered. So far, Rabbi Mizrachi easily won the argument with Sneeko, because Sneeko's a callow young man who, has stupid sound effects on his dumb videos. But recently he's taken to wearing a suit and tie, so I think he's trying hard. Just stop with this dumb sound effects. I don't even know what it's supposed to mean. I wish he would talk to the Islamic scholar And E. Michael Jones talked to, what's his name? Hamza Wald Makbul. I'll suggest he does that. I must find out that name of that Christian nationalist Sam Harris talks to. It's annoying me. I mean, he's obviously a white nationalist, what? Just by the talking points that they come up with. I mean, it's not hard to work them out because they're just so dumb. Doug Wilson, that's his name. So, as I've said before, theology is the final political frontier. Why are these weak white men so weak and dumb? Because they have no convictions, right? They have no convictions, and their behavior is exemplified by Brett, who at least is honest enough to know that he has no convictions that he cares to defend against my questions and my comments, and that is why he keeps deleting me, and that's why whenever he gets a wrench from any of his friends, his new internet friends like Megan Goldsby, he deletes my comments, and they let him do that. It's a kind of plausible deniability. Oh, but I didn't actually delete your comments, Claire. It's that, it's that Brett who does it. Oh, but he's my friend, so I have to mod him. And I said, well, why don't you give me a wrench to protect myself from, people like him? No response. Megan Goldsby, who interviewed me on the 13th of July, Monday, and then deleted the whole damn thing. I won't forget. So these weak white men, well, they should be getting themselves together to say, oh, what's this terrible thing that Claire said that you found you had to delete it? She's really pissed off. She's really pissed off because she didn't think that she said anything wrong. So did one of the two women say something wrong? Did they? Were they being too polite to me? Perhaps they should have shrieked and sworn and questioned me, but they didn't. I think the reason why they wanted deleted Stephanie Christos and Megan Goldsby is because they didn't feel they were being mean enough. Right, but they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it because they're supposed to be nice. TLC people are supposed to be nice, and they didn't know what to do, so they just let me answer the question. They didn't engage or say, "Oh, but perhaps we shouldn't do this," or whatever. They didn't. They just asked the next question, and I suppose on reflection they thought, "Oh dear, we didn't show enough hostility. People might think we agree with her. Oh no." So this is what I'm dealing with. Scared, stupid people who are basically without conviction. Because if you have conviction, you would be prepared to have them scrutinized, questioned. But they're not. These weak, white Christian men have no convictions. They just get stoned and play stupid music and talk nonsense. Even the smart ones, they talk about what stupid shit like tacos and Kurosawa, anything but their supposed beliefs. Shopping, children, cooking. So who can I go to? I think I'll just have to stick with TLC, right? I have to stick with TLC and see what gives with these weak white men who have no moral convictions. Of course, they can't say, well, we believe that Jesus is God, because they know they're going to have the piss taken out of them, because I know enough about Western culture and Western political hierarchies to know that Christians they are despised. But what about these politicians who go to church, Nancy Pelosi and, Biden and, all these politicians who pretend to be Christian. Yeah, they go to church, they call themselves Catholic. But what they do is make sure they do not discuss theology. They don't discuss theology. And the most important aspect of theology is what God is. Is he Jesus? What do you think, Christians? You really, 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 really think he's Jesus and do you think Jesus created the universe and was a creator of the universe, the son of a woman called Mary? Really? That's why they won't engage. That's why they won't talk to me. But what about these dais, right? These YouTubers, these Muslim YouTubers who go to Speaker's Corner and go to Oxford Union, people like Abdullah Al-Andalusi, and he was talking about how the debate went. It's still not published, right? The video of that debate in the Oxford Union, has it been published? I don't think so. I think I would have got some mention of it. So it's still recollections, notes, because these Christians, they didn't win the argument. That was what Abdullah al-Andalusi was saying. He said he still won the arguments, despite all the cheating and the last-minute changes of the rules and who could speak last. They still won. And this is because Islam is absolutely logical. And people like their beliefs to be easily defended. Not every Christian has the power of the Catholic Church to burn you at the stake, right? And if they can't burn you at the stake, they lose the argument time and time and time again. And now, we already know what the Trinity is for. I've worked it out for you. The purpose of the Trinity is to raise the status of an executed blasphemer to be the co-equal of the eternal and supreme Abrahamic God who created the universe, in order to win the argument against Jews, because otherwise Jews would say, our God of Israel is more powerful than your crucified Christ. We don't think that Jesus is the Son of God, and you can't prove that he is the Son of God. And look at your lies about the genealogy of Jesus. It does, Anyway, Rabbi Mizrachi, in this video that I linked to you in the description, says that. He's saying, well, if he's a son of God, then he doesn't need to be from the Davidic line, does he? That's what he's saying. So the lies he made up is completely, transparent and confused. Let me find it for you. I mean, just so disgusting how stupid they are. Stupid, cowardly, they don't care. Are they Christian? Yes or no? Yes and no. Who cares? Let me find it.
Both in agreement with this. So, like, I think it's really you're trying to convince me if Jesus didn't exist or not. I know that Jesus of Nazareth, there's two different Jesus of Nazareth, and they're
Oh,
both in the Talmud mentioned in two different places. I
is it?
always thought that this meant that one of them was the Jesus of Nazareth that the Christians are always talking about, and it's one of the proofs of Jesus and one of the things that bind Christians to the Talmud. If I'm wrong, I think this is a great place to start the debate. Did Jesus exist, Rabbi Mizrachi?
Okay, so the Talmud speaks about a person named Yeshua, which was a common name in those days, Yud Shin Vav and Ayin, and they describe a person that was learning by a big rabbi named Rav Yoshua ben Farchia. He was in yeshiva, and the rabbi kicked him out of the yeshiva. And that's the story that appears in the Talmud. The problem is that the JC that the Christians present and the JC that the Talmud speaks about have about 150 years difference in their time. So you can see that they're talking about the same famous JC. Now, when you go to the New Testament, right, when they describe the genealogy of Joseph the carpenter, right? They try to link him all the way to King David because in the Torah is the Old Testament, and they claim that she's a continuation of the 24 books of Judaism, right? Judaism starts with Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, and then you have the book of Joshua and the Kings, and it goes all the way to King Solomon, the Songs of Songs, all together 24 books. Then came the Christians, and they claimed that God gave them another book, which is the New Testament, the evangelists, Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John, those, and then they have additional parts, which is the Acts, that they have additionals to the New, and the New Testament is trying to continue from where Judaism left, and they say that God gave part two. Now, when you review in the beginning of Christianity, they try to prove that Joseph the carpenter is a grandson of King David. So they describe the story that Joseph in Hebrew is Yosef, just like my name, Yosef. Name in Arabic they say Yusuf, in Farsi they say Yusuf, but it's the same name.
In English, it's Joseph.
Yeah, so they figure it from the Torah. So he meets Miriam, who's another Jewish woman. They get engaged. They have like a Jewish way. You all know, once the husband, the bride and the groom is under the chuppah, he puts the ring on her finger. They officially are now married, but the conclusion of and in the old days, the custom was that he would go away and come back after a few months with some money that he made. And now they're building their own homes. Now, remember, to build a home wasn't like today. You need 2 years to build a home. They take some wood, build a house with tar, insulation, they can do, and you have a house. So he comes back after a few months and he sees she's pregnant. Ask her, what did you do? And she said, I didn't cheat. God came to me in a dream and made me pregnant, and this boy will be somebody holy and all. That's the story. Now, just before that, they tried to link Joseph to King David. Why? Because in Torah, it's written Messiah, son of David. So it cannot be just a righteous Jew. It has to be a righteous Jew that comes from the family of David. If he will be just a right from a different family, he can never be the Messiah. For instance, if he's going to be a righteous Jew that his last name is Levi, it's from the tribe of Levi. It cannot be from, it can never be a Cohen, someone that his last name is Cohen, that means from the tribe of the Kohanim. It cannot be the Messiah. So it has to be from the family of King David.
From the family, from the king. Let's just be clear. Okay? From the king
it has
family.
to be David, because God promised David that his kingdom will reign and the Messiah will come. Okay, so now when they describe the genealogy of King David all the way to Joseph the carpenter, in two of the books of the evangelists, there are 22 mistakes. 22 mistakes. There is a description who gave birth to who. In one book, it describes a list. You go to another, same God according to them, 22 different names, different order, complete mess up. So now, imagine now in a book, in one place, it would say that Abraham gave birth to Isaac. Isaac gave birth to Jacob. Jacob gave birth to Joseph. Joseph gave birth. And then you go to another chapter in the Torah, and it says Abraham gave birth to Joshua. Joshua gave Ezra. Ezra gave birth to Isaac. Isaac birth to Joseph. Complete mess up. A normal intellectual that reads such nonsense and believe another minute that this is a divine book. In a divine book, do you have such human errors? It's ridiculous. It's something like this. You have in the same book a description, and then of over 30 generations, all the way from King David to Joseph the carpenter, and you have 22 mistakes, different names. So what? God doesn't know who gave birth to Joseph the carpenter, who was his grandfather and a great-grandfather, that in one place describe one name, and another page it describes completely different names. So therefore, how to begin with, it's this one, or none of them. The best part is describe all this genealogy. They tell a story that Joseph went away and he came back. His wife Mary, she's pregnant, and they asked him, "How do you be pregnant? I will get on you." She said, "So Christianity, who is the mother that is so where he came from, right? Who is the father? Is God is a grandson of King David? Why did you waste the whole page to describe the loss of the is from the family of King David? Regardless of all, it was to prove that the father of JC is from the family of King David, and that's why JC can be the Messiah. But right after that, you say that he has nothing to do with the boy. He's not his biological father. And according to the Torah, the genealogy goes after the father. If your father is a Kohen, you are a Kohen. If your mother is coming from a family of a Kohanim, of a Kohen, you're not a Kohen. Everybody knows it. If your father is a Levi, you're a Levi. If my mother is a Levi, I'm not a Levi. I'm not acting as a Levi in a synagogue. So obviously, you see, no matter how you look at it, this book, the chance that it was given by God is 0%. There's not even 0.01% chance that this book is divine. Because the book that is telling us everything we know about JC obviously is not from God, therefore we cannot rely on the story that JC even exists. I'll give you an example. Sometimes Christians come to me and say to me, "What are you talking about? I had a dream last night about JC, talk to me, and this and this and that." I say, "How did he look?" They say he had long hair and a goatee, and they describe exactly the image of the statue on Brazil. You know the statue that they put on the mountain there in Brazil?
Right.
I say to the guy, "Don't be stupid. In the time of JC 2,000 years ago, not one Jew in the world would dare to grow long hair like a woman. It's against the Torah."
You look like me, right? Look, all the Christians, they want Jesus to look like me.
One of the restrictions of the Torah, as you know, that a man is not allowed to look like a woman, not to dress like a woman, not to put jewelry of a woman, or not to have hair of the woman. So
yeah, and he wears robes too.
Do you think that JC 2,000 years ago, that was in a time that all Jews were extremely religious, and that he's going to have a hair like this and a goatee? Where did you ever see religious Jews that look like that? A serious one. So obviously, this whole thing is based on a fairy tale. There is no evidence that it happened, but I give them the benefits of the doubt. When I debate them, I follow what they claim. And based on what they claim and based on their book, the New Testament and the Evangelist and the Acts, I prove to them that those books are full of human errors, full. That's why I made that 3 hours debate. And many Christians, believe it or not, among them dozens of priests from all over the world, from Ukraine, from Russia, from Africa, from United States, from Texas, from so many places. They wrote to me, thank you for enlightening my eyes. You gave me the answer to all the doubts I had. As a matter of fact, one of the priests in Ukraine told me, I'm teaching your Torah to all my students here in a church where I am. There are 5,000 students over here, and they are all amazed by all the information, but I'm very much afraid that one day they'll find out that everything I teach them comes from a Jewish rabbi, because in a minute they'll find out, that day I will be killed. That's how much they are anti-Semites over here in Ukraine, that if they'll find out that I'm listening to a Jewish rabbi and I bring his stuff and teach it to them, that will be the last day of me and my family. So,
but they also want us all to believe that their God is a Jewish rabbi too, you know? So it's kind of like a weird symbiotic thing. Rabbi, I don't want to cut you off, but I want to focus on the debate. Adam has in his book, he extensively goes into different reasons why he believes that Jesus is not God. Not God, but that he did not only exist. And that being said, you know, I want to give him the space to share a little bit about his background, because it is fascinating. I'm not sold yet on either if
I trust you have heard of Adam Green. He's known for he's been thrown off YouTube. He now streams on Odyssey, and you can find him on X. He was brought up Christian, and then he became a pagan, and then he became agnostic. And his shtick is to tell white nationalists that they'll never win the war against Jews if they worship one, and I tend to agree. Also, nobody told you to worship a Jew. Nobody told you, well, apart from your corrupt priesthood and your absolute monarchs of your ancestors, nobody told you, nobody forced you to worship a Jew. And if you're having difficulties accepting that this was what your ancestors suffered, because the alternative to questioning the Trinity is to be burnt at the stake, then, well, of course your ancestors were going to shut up about why they had to worship a Jew, or even ask any questions. Unless they joined the priesthood, and then they would be on the other side of, denouncing those who ask too many questions. After all, we all know what the Catholic Church did. And just because the Catholic Church is being all nice to, yes, all universalists now, isn't it? Pope Francis saying everyone has a reasonable chance of getting to heaven. I mean, when did he become this? What was that? Moralistic therapeutic deism. When did the Catholic Church start promoting moralistic therapeutic deism? When? Well, it was quite recently by the last Pope. But we know now, don't we, that it's full of crap. It's only being meek and mild because it knows it can't burn heretics at the stake. Imagine if they could do. If they could burn heretics at the stake, if they had the absolute monarch they could claim to protect, who will do all their dirty work for them, what do you think the Catholic Church would do then? Is this what you really want to go back to? White people? It's almost unbelievable to be so willfully ignorant of your own history. I am in particular addressing people like Anselman. So he doesn't understand, or he's trying to somehow fit that in and make his beliefs true. So he has to accuse me of being Anselman has to accuse me of wanting to persecute Christians. No, I don't want to persecute anyone, but I am thinking of exposing the Trinity for what it is, which is a lie you're not supposed to question. Some might argue it's a noble lie to keep up Christendom. And in the age of monarchy, you might say, well, we have a duty to maintain the current political order of monarchy. But now that Christendom entered in 1918, over 100 years ago, I think we can dismiss the need to tell this noble lie to keep Christians in existence and make them feel top dog, because the most noticeable effect of Christianity on Western men is that it makes them mendacious and fearful and corrupt. So Paul van der Klee, if he were being an honest man, you can listen to all that he says, and I think you'll be able to find quite a few heresies, when he talks about God number one and God number two and God number three. Though he remembers every now and then to say, Christ is king, in a Christian nationalist way. And the fact that he won't talk to me now is, probably for similar reasons to why Michael Jones says he won't talk to Rabbi Mizrachi. Rabbi Mizrachi is a force to be contended with, because he didn't go to university. He has this Israeli accent that a lot of assimilated Jews just cannot bear. And because they are snobs, right? And they're being snobbish to their Christian overlords. Why submit to your Christian overlords if they believe in nonsense? And why submit to them when you know they're weak and stupid? And the only way they can use Christianity is to ban everyone else, right? Is to reintroduce blasphemy laws, and they would have to reintroduce blasphemy laws, and they would have to, well, basically destroy the First Amendment, to abolish the First Amendment. Is this what these Americans want? Are they dumb enough to go along with that? Well, some are, I know. Some say, well, the First Amendment hasn't done us any good. But then it would be just as dumb as saying, well, the recipe book that I bought or have had in my family for years, it hasn't even cooked my meals. But that's because they're too moronic to understand that if you have a book of rules, you're supposed to follow it. So at every juncture of any engagement, they lose. And they refuse to admit it, and they refuse to admit it, and they refuse to ask the logical next question. And their women are also corrupt, particularly the two who asked me all those questions about secular Quranism and then deleted the answers because they couldn't be seen to be even talking to me. Though it would be on record that they certainly didn't say anything that suggested that they agree with me. Well, I can't remember now because, when I don't have the records. So everywhere I go, I see lies, cover-ups, corruption, neurosis, stupidity, cowardice. Have I said that already? Well, that's the biggest sign above them. I mean, you would have thought, TLC, so many smart people who've been to university and grad school, you would have thought they could have got some argument together to say that what I say ain't true and ain't logical. They could do that. They can confer. I can't stop them from conferring with each other. But it seems they're only left with the unsustainable tactic of ignoring me or pretending not to, or pretending to engage, fake Christians, fake engagement, fake. So we're back to Brett. Mind you, to be fair to him, he did say quite sensibly, I mean, I do, listen to what he says, and I, try and work out if he does occasionally say something that's worth repeating, other than going on about his relationship with Jesus. So he said yesterday with on Luke Thompson's stream that, when they were talking about all those dumb movies that they've seen, and it's so pathetic. Is that the only way they can kind of bond with each other? Which superhero Marvel comics did you like? Did you prefer Batman or Superman, Spider-Man or X-Men? It's just mind-blowingly infantile. But that's how they talk. Did you like this movie or didn't you? But it's all fake. It's only a story. You're not even supposed to believe it's true. But then, of course, you get tired of talking about Jesus, right? Because talking about Jesus too much flags you as a moron who literally believes in Christianity. And the liberal establishment will know that you're a believing Christian and therefore stupid. And so these lies confuse everybody. So yes, in a way, you are allowed to be Christian or encouraged to be Christian, but only, the kind of, Christian who goes a lot, this universalist Christian who is basically a liberal, but then not be able to digest the fact that the American Republic was a reaction against monarchy and Christianity. What did the founding fathers do but be the first Europeans to distance Europeans as a whole from Christianity? And boy, was that successful, because what happened was, swiftly after the American Revolution followed the French Revolution, and they killed their king and kicked out Christianity. But for some reason, this is not properly understood by Europeans. It's infuriating. It's their history, but they don't understand it, presumably because it hasn't been put together in the right way. And while I do it for them, I do not have the authority as a history teacher. I wasn't a history teacher when they were in primary school explaining why the American Revolution caused the French Revolution and eventually also caused the Russian Revolution, which finally kicked out Christian monarchs, or the most powerful ones, in 1918. The Austrian Empire, the Austrian Emperor, the German Emperor, and the Russian Emperor, the Tsar, Nicholas II, who sought asylum from his cousin George V and was denied it. Can you imagine these kings of Europe? They couldn't even help each other out. So poor old Nicholas begging for asylum from his first cousin, George. And George, perhaps he did want to give it to him, but was told by his advisors that it was not advisable to allow Nicholas II to seek asylum in Britain, because that would endanger the British monarchy too. Because, as you can imagine, in 1918, the people of Europe were pretty pissed off with their world war, weren't they? But somehow they didn't get it. They carried on. If you look at these war memorials, you will see what it says. To the glory of God. Then a list of dead men. You would have thought that a penny would have dropped. Perhaps it did, but perhaps those on whom the penny dropped didn't control the media. But they stopped believing. So the problem with Christianity is that it's basically mumbo jumbo if you want to justify it, all the ridiculous explanations of the Trinity. Nobody understands it. You just get some bloviating fraud to talk about it and use long words and talk quickly so the peasants don't get a chance to stop them and ask them any questions. Or maybe the peasants get beaten up if they ask questions. And so they can't use the rules to question their leaders. I'm saying Islam has a book that says something about foreign policy and military policy. And so if you can read, if only in your own language, even if you can't read classical Arabic, you should be able to obtain a copy of the Quran in your own language. And having read it, you will know what your rulers are supposed to do or not to do. And using those rules, you can call them out before it's too late, right? Before it is too late, before World War III blows up, before the men of the TLC talk about their dumb movies in their infantilized and infantile way. If they don't want to talk to me, I can understand why they might not wish to engage with me. You would have thought they might want to talk to each other about, this and that, serious matters, nothing to do with dumb movies that they enjoyed or didn't enjoy, or their girlfriend forced them to watch. They could be talking about, US foreign policy that will inevitably affect them. But we know democracy is It's for dumbos. Right. Democracy is for dumbos who want it to be their religion, or they can't work it out. Do they want to call democracy their religion? And if they don't, won't they be admitting that they were dumb for supporting it? What's it going to be, white man? Admit your errors to avoid committing further graver errors, or just carry on to the edge of the cliff? Maybe that's what you want anyway. You're too tired to fix anything. You're too dumb to fix anything. You're too scared of your other fake Christians to do anything, and therefore you would rather just follow the herd and walk right off the cliff. But back to Rabbi Mizrachi, he does make a point, doesn't he, about the house of cards that is the Trinity, that was enforced by violence, which the American Republic has what's the word? The American Republic has removed the political system that requires Europeans to follow the religion of their ancestors. And so we just choose the best religion available, right? That's what we do now that we can do it. Well, we still can do it. But BVK won't bite. He wants to lead his Christian cattle to the edge of the cliff, right? He's going to be talking about Ayaan Hirsi Ali and equate Islam with honor killing and FGM. He won't be talking to me or any Muslim, because I really hope Muslims will come and have a look at the people at the men. Forget the women. Women don't go there. I mean, Meghan might hang around for a bit and then realise what a bunch of losers they are and quietly quit. At the moment, she's belle of the ball. But what kind of women? What kind of woman would want to be associated with men who are too scared to talk about their own religion? They're so scared and clueless. And they won't talk about Christian identity when, it's being used by their government, by people who oppose their government, but it has no rules, it has no codified principles, and they don't know what codified principles are. They just want to strum their guitar and cry and say they don't like it and they don't know. And he would be the person with the most live viewers, because they just love it when people show their wounds and say how hurt they've been and what a big fat victim they are and how stupid and clueless. And if you come along and know what you're talking about, they don't like you. TLC is the perfect representation of Western men, and that's why it's so important. I'm not saying they're all bad people. I'm just saying they have to come to terms with the fact that their religion has failed. And a good thing too, because a better one awaits them. They have a better one. So what's their problem? Wouldn't it be fun to be like me and win all the arguments? And even if people ignore your questions, you will know that your questions that appeared to sink like lead to the bottom of their pond of corruption and lies will eventually behave like a drowned corpse and float up. Yes, that is what will happen. It might not. Okay, we can say it didn't happen in the last 250 years, but we've passed the 250 years, right? We've passed it. It's happening. The corpse has floated. The methane has been generated, and the corpse is floating upwards. And a good thing too, because you don't want your belief system to be full of holes and be a corpse and make you tell lies and make others call you out for your lies and nonsense. Or do you want to be able to be put in the position of executing blasphemers as Jesus was executed? Is that really what you want? And if that is really what you want, then have fun turning back time to before the American Republic, to go back to the age of monarchy and refight the wars of the Reformation. So Rabbi Mizrachi reaching out to Christians and anti-Semites and Muslims is a very good thing. It gladdens my heart, but I doubt members of the TLC will be watching it because they just flee from things they don't understand and dislike, and then they start playing their guitar after having deleted your comments and blocked you and told everybody else to do it too. And they play their guitar and they cry and they cry and they complain that they don't like it and they don't know. And then they change the subject to dumb movies they have seen. And Paul van der Clay encourages it. He feeds off this confusion and stupidity because he's white and he's Christian and he talks to them nicely. He's not like me, telling them what they need to know. But I hear from them that they'll be going to this estuary coming up. How many of them are there? Estuary meetings upcoming. Oh, this one today. Some webinar, is it? No. I think this is actually something to do with rivers. I should put Paul van der Clay. So what they should be talking about is no-hide laws. That's the least they could be doing, but Paul van der Clay doesn't want to talk about the no-hide laws because then it'll, the first no-hide law forbids idolatry, and then the Christians will ask, well, some Christians will think, oh, okay, fine, and no idolatry, no blasphemy, it's a repeat, an echo of the first and second commandments. Incorporated into Christianity, right? That's what they would think. But then, some bright spark might say they don't have the same definition of idolatry as us. And then somebody might say, idolatry is a worship of anything that isn't God. And then somebody might say, Jews and Muslims don't think Jesus is God. And then they'll have a good old discussion about idolatry. And Chad, I think, is beginning to ask questions, and I really am delighted by it. So he did actually engage on idolatry. I can't remember on whose stream now, but he did ask me what I wanted him to ask about idolatry, and I said, well, I would like people to ask me how idolatry is harmful if God doesn't exist to punish anyone for anything. But he's probably forgotten about it, right? He's probably forgotten all about it. And I have answered the question. And Elsa knows the answer. Elsa knows that idolaters pay the opportunity cost of not being rightly guided by the Quran. And I can prove it too. I can prove it by... I suppose this is a problem. Paul van der Clay, as far as I know, is the only member of TLC with a degree in history. So being a historian, he should be able to trot out a list of historical tragedies. And I will be able to relate it to not being rightly guided by the Quran. And I think Elson understands it. He's just not, responding because he takes a long time to engage with me. He does eventually email me with a response about something I said weeks ago or maybe months ago. And recently he said he loves believing in the Trinity because it's absurd. But it's pitiful. Why do you do that to yourselves? Why? I would go mad if I had to do that to myself. And that I guess, is the reason why so many Westerners suffer from mental health issues. It is because the being force-fed lies gives you a kind of spiritual indigestion and makes you nihilistic. But Paul van der Clay doesn't care. He just wants to ask me about the home I grew up in instead of my propositions, and this is very disappointing in men who are citizens of a proposition nation. Now, let us look at the propositions in the US Declaration of Independence. I should play you some music and get myself a drink. Right. Propositions. The unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America, when in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, i.e. England, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So it's basically saying, I'm going to tell we, the rebellious 13 states of America, jointly tell the British monarch why we've had enough of you and why we're telling you to go jump in the lake. Proposition number 1. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. That's the first one. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Do you disagree? That amongst these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Well, when are we going to have a conversation, PVK, about these unalienable rights? What could Jefferson have meant by them? How many unalienable rights are there, and how many alienable rights are there? So one of the things that Stephanie Crystal said to me was that she doesn't want anyone thinking she might support a theocracy. And my point is that a proposition nation is a theocracy. I mean, there's only one as far as I know. I mean, if you can find another proposition anywhere in the world, let me know. As far as I know, America is indispensable and exceptional nation because it is a proposition nation, and the propositions are unique to America. Or are they unique to America? Are they not universal principles? And this is what gives America the manifest destiny, right? The manifest destiny to colonize the rest of the world and impose on the rest of the world these propositions that all men are created equal and that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And what are these unalienable rights? I would say that the unalienable rights are conferred on them by their Creator in the Quran. Is that such a terrible thing to say? I mean, there is a White House Quran that belonged to Thomas Jefferson, who owned it since he was a law student in 1765. Is it a terrible thing to say, Stephanie Christos? You don't support a theocracy, but America is conceptually a theocracy. What is the Declaration of Independence but acknowledging that God created men and he created them equal, and they have been endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights? So this is a category: unalienable rights, certain unalienable rights. Where are they to be found? I'm saying in the Quran. I mean, if somebody else has a better idea, Let me know. Let me know, PVK. Let me know. Anybody? Let me know, Christian. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Yeah, if they don't consent, they'll rebel, right? They'll have another revolution. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. But these weak white men in TLC talking about their favorite movies, what are they going to do? They won't even question the beliefs of their ancestors or even get to know their own history and acknowledge that Christianity supported the divine right of absolute monarchs to rule, and this is precisely what the founding fathers were kicking against. So I'm just talking to people who don't know their own history and don't want to know their own history, and it would be forgivable if they were uneducated peasants, but they're grad school boys, right? Skankenstein. Grad school boys. People have been to Bible college. They can't, they don't get it. After so many times, still don't get it. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Damn right. But what form has Christianity? What good has it done the European? Why haven't they noticed that the last 250 years of European history has been an attempt to tell monarchs to go jump in a lake? And that's why the British monarch has fewer rights than the average American citizen. He can't change his religion and keep his job, can he? He can't discuss foreign policy, can he? What's the point? What's the point of living like that? Imagine not even being told, not even being expected to defend your moral convictions, if you have any. Do I need to talk about moral convictions? Convictions means we really believe that Jesus is God and he created the universe, and the creator of the universe was the son of a virgin called Mary. Is that what you really believe, Christian? I mean, aren't you ashamed? Do you really want to continue to pretend to believe in this nonsense? Do you? Fuck that for a laugh. I mean, that's a problem with these Muslims. They don't dare to show the contempt that this idea deserves. They're going to be nicey, and oh, come on, Christian, we're nice about Jesus. It doesn't work. It doesn't work because they hate you, right? These white, weak Western men, they hate you. They would rather die than take on the religion of brownoids, right? Like what they call them, nuns, brownoids, immigrants fresh off the boat. They don't say it because they're middle class, but privately they'll say things like, "We don't want that in our home, do we? We don't want that in our neighborhood, do we? No, no, no." But you would have thought, if you had any moral convictions at all, Brett, you'd be prepared to defend them against facts and logic. And if your beliefs cannot be defended by facts and logic, then it means they are nonsensical, they are absurd, they are morally and intellectually indefensible. And it's time you admitted it, right? For the sake of your society, for the sake of your progeny, if any, your grandchildren, if any, your descendants, if any, or do you just want to go down in history as being one of the stupid people who didn't care, who didn't know, who were cattle led by mendacious leaders who didn't care about them because it's above their pay grade, right? Above their pay grade. Well, whose pay grade is it then? The president's pay grade? I think Trump is in deep shit. Do you want to be the president's pay grade? Let's continue reading. So it says, well, people tend not to want to rebel until it becomes insufferable. You can't fight. Okay, you're not going to disagree with it. It's kind of like the no-hike clause. It's framed in a way that's meant to secure general assent. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations pursuing invariably the same object evinces are designed to reduce them under absolute despotism, it is their right, it is their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies, and such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over these states. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. And then he lists all the things that the British monarch did to the American colonies and calls him a tyrant and says, we will suffer no more these usurpations that affect our safety and happiness. So he says, nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by the legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We have reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. We have appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connection and correspondence. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and consanguinity. It is saying, these people might be, our relatives and family, but they don't give a shit about us. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation, and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. just think of the founding fathers and compare them to men of the TLC, right? Just think of the weak, stoned, incoherent men of TLC. Not all of them, obviously. And the genius of Jefferson. And the messages he tried to give, well, I've got the Jefferson Quran, it's mine. It's got my writing in the margins. I don't know if he wrote in the margins, but it's his. And the Jefferson Bible, what do you think he's trying to say to you Christians? He's saying, he's already denied the Trinity, and he's saying, Paul never met Jesus. Come on. Oh, everything he said is based on, well, his own ideas. In fact, if you want to read the Jefferson Bible, it's really the red letter Bible. And, if Jesus said anything and it's on record, it's Sermon on the Mount, and it's mostly nonsense, right? It's mostly nonsense. And contradicts, anyway, he's not God. And if you say he's God, then you're guilty of idolatry and you're hellbound. And you don't care because you're atheists anyway. So, there you are. Your beliefs are nonsense. You can't defend them, even after I have given you all these opportunities to confer amongst yourselves, and all you want to do is talk about stupid, dumb movies, right? Because you just can't talk about the most important thing about Christianity, which is a Trinity. Because it's a house of cards built on sand, but you still want to believe in it. And that's why I say that you are an Islamophobe, even though you've never said anything mean about Muslims, because you're too middle class and well brought up, to say mean things about Muslims. You just never mention them. You never talk about them. You never complain about immigration because you're too middle class and and smart to talk about these things. But I can tell from your expressions what you really think about these immigrants who are, what are they doing here? They're doing, well, you need a labour force, don't you? And your government is going to protect its investment because it's inviting all these people from other parts of the world, heritage Americans, to come to your country, and they will be pacified by their government being nice to them and patting them over the head and, well, kicking your butts, right? And say, well, you will be the future Americans. You will be paying taxes, and at least you'll be having children. In the meantime, the heritage Americans who can't even form a coherent thought or sentence and say, I like this, don't like this. It's like, I don't know. Just listen. Get the transcript of any of their streams. Get the transcript and maybe print it out and underline a coherent sentence. Why don't you do that? Underline a coherent sentence. Oh, it's possible to form a coherent sentence, even with like in it. I know, it can be done. Just all that time and the saying of nothing. But I think S. Jury is great. Imagine all these weak white men talking about secular Quranism. Is that the only thing we have left? Surely not. What about Christian nationalism? Why can't we just kick them out? Sure, get it together to kick them out. The government, the matriarchy is counting on you not ever getting your act together. And PVK is there to soothe you and tell you pretty lies and saying it's okay to be Christian because these Muslims, as Ayan Hirsi Ali says, Islam is synonymous with terrorism and domestic extremism and laws and rules you hate and FGM, and he'll keep repeating that again and again, and nobody will question him because that's what they want to hear. And Christianity is okay, and maybe Christian nationalism is the way. It's disgusting. It's contemptible. And I just do what I do because I need to do this. I need to, dump my thoughts on the contemptibility of Western masculinity. I had thought briefly that, perhaps Western women might lead the way and say, well, perhaps it would help the men if we did abolish no-fault divorce. This was what I discussed with Megan and Stephanie, and they seemed agreeable. Maybe they're regretting it now. And that's why Megan deleted the entire conversation. And so men will have to sort it out themselves because the women are not up to it. Will they dare to say that perhaps no-fault divorce should be abolished? Are they going to say that? Because, okay, the women, Stephanie and Megan, they've censored it, right? They've censored it. They've said, no, we can't talk about it. We can't be seen to be talking about it. Not with her. And that's useful. I've got the evidence. What are you saying, Ken? I'll send you the link in case you want to join. Caucasity is a mind virus. Are you being racist about white people? I don't want to be racist. I mean, it's obvious that you get, concentrations of people of a certain race in, particular regions of the world. And of course, they would be subject to the, culture and the politics of that region, yes, and they will, be kind of victims of their culture and politics and stuff. But in a way, I'm saying, I'm not white, but I understand a bit of their history, and they don't. And I tell them, and they don't care. And that's what drives me crazy. They don't want to know. They don't care. They just want to smoke weed, play crap music, look at Grim Grizz, who says nothing. He says nothing. And that Ezra is always hanging out with him. And what do they say? I don't know. I can't even work it out. It's just nonsense, right? But we're part of the cool gang. We play cool psychedelic music and it doesn't mean anything. We just hang out with each other, right? Because we're white and we're male and we're TLC. Okay, that's a new word for me. Well, this privilege, white privilege is really imperial privilege. And it's breaking down, obviously. It's breaking down, and that's why we're having a collective meaning crisis. And what is so contemptible is that they can't deal with it. They can't ask the obvious next question. I've been saying it's Christianity. Christianity is causing you confusion and unease because you can't really believe in it because it's so absurd. And I'm saying there is another religion that is kind about Mary and Jesus and gives Jesus and acknowledges the prophethood of Jesus. I mean, what's the problem? It's pretty high status, right? So Islam is saying there was a purpose to Christianity, even if people, got things wrong because they didn't have authentic revelation that is preserved, assuming it ever was revealed. But it's okay, we've got the Quran. So you think, well, just read the Quran, read the Quran. Oh, but no, we're too full of hatred and fear, and we're scared. Oh, but we'd rather spend time hanging out with each other online and, talking about stupid shit and strumming our guitar instead of reading the Quran. I mean, we're scared of our wives. What if our wife catches us reading the Quran? That would be the end. She might divorce us, right? I think I've come to the end. Maybe it's time for me to go and troll them. They haven't started yet. I mean, why don't they come over? Come on over. I'm not going to delete your comments. I'm not going to kick you out. You can tell me what you want. So, what we can do is understand why having no convictions is a problem. These weak white men, Ezra and Grip. I mean, if you had convictions, you would say, I know the way, and it is that way, or this way, but they never, ever say anything. And all they're left with is denying there is a problem, and the next estuary meeting will make their problems go away. Yeah, I know all their tactics of avoidance, right? And I suppose it's helpful, when they're not going to engage. So the least you can do is get to your point quickly before people get bored. So in a way, they've kind of honed my skills, right? But they still don't get the basics of friendship, right? Friendship has to be amongst equals. You can't be friends with your dad because you have to acknowledge his superior and senior position. But interestingly, the Quran talks about God as being your friend or your ally. Well, I don't read classical Arabic, so I don't know. But the point is, let's assume he doesn't exist, and we just conjure up this, divine being in our mind and behave as if he were helping us. But we still have a dialogue with him in our minds. We ask him questions and we imagine his answers, and we ask him questions, and so you build up a a dialogue anyway. But I can't imagine these people, what kind of relationship can you have talking to Jesus, who didn't say anything much, right? When we're talking to somebody dying on the cross, does he say anything back to you? I don't think they even know. I'll try to be. I'm going to be fair to Ryan. I wasn't waiting for a long time. At backstage, and he might not have noticed. So I can't complain that I was being kept waiting a long time. And he did say, I do remember him saying, I've got to go in, 10 minutes. And so that was when I got on. Anyway, he did. I think he did say something at the end and saying this is something to reflect on. And what I said was that I raised the question of whether men and women can ever be friends, because it's one of the favorite um, topics of platonic friendship, and some people say it's impossible because that the man always has this intention of having sex with her, and he can't really tell her a whole bunch of things because she would either be taken in by his lies or lose respect for him if he confesses to his vulnerability and his confusion and his weakness and blah. And maybe you're not doing your relationship any good because she'll think, well, what am I doing with this loser? Right? That I'm afraid is universal and eternal. And so you have to have friends, right? You have to have male friends. And you can't rely on just one person. And that's the whole point of man being a social animal. And in a way, as Teo said, it's actually a good move, for me anyway, that Stephanie and Megan decided to delete my answers to their question. It just shows that women cannot be relied on to advance the cause. So my recollection is that I explained how it would happen with a change of the law, treating unmarried parents as sex offenders, and it wouldn't be immediately. There would be a whole year of grace, and the least we can do is propose the abolition of no-fault divorce, and I think they kind of agreed. B was talking in code at that spot at the end of Ryan's stream yesterday, hence she mentioned needing to speak with Teo. I've dealt with white nationalists. These racial references just, they water off a duck's back. So let them be racist. It's in a way, it's their right to be racist, and in a way, it is a racial problem for them because Christianity is perceived by these Europeans as, a white person's religion. And of course, it's historically true. So I don't, if they, what I'm trying to say is that there are more important things for me to point out about their foibles than their occasional expressions of racism. And the interesting thing is that Teo is being put in a kind of managerial position. He kind of, um, I don't want to say minder or childminder, but he does kind of adjudicate on certain matters. Okay, I'm really not that sensitive, but it's like, yeah, you obviously white people do feel threatened, right? And maybe they shouldn't, if they want to keep the purity of their race, they shouldn't race mates. But actually, all the Abrahamic religions say we're not supposed to be racist, and there have been attempts to be racist, and it fell apart because even with white nationalists, they will, they're going into a tailspin of confusion when I asked them, are Jews white? And that's when they kicked me. So, can you really go by appearances? And aren't Jews white? And if you're saying, well, it's not just, their race, it's how they think. It's like, yeah, how should they think? I mean, Christians worship a Jew. And they can't deal with it. Their heads explode and they don't want to talk about it. And so they're just left with, blaming Jews in their very exclusive echo chambers, deleting anyone who says anything wrong. Yeah, I did notice them laughing, but I was pleased because I made my point, right? I made my point, and they cannot respond to it in an intelligible and substantive way. I mean, all they're left with is going to their estuary meetings and trying to be Christian while not talking about the Trinity because, it's part of the estuary protocol not to only discuss things that have been pre-approved, right? It's it's a kind of word game thing, right? And there will be people who want to talk about certain things, and there's probably a forbidden list of things that, must never be discussed, like the Trinity. But nobody wants to discuss the Trinity anyway. Yeah, well, they don't even understand the object of the game. The object of the game is to win the argument against me. And the only way they can win the argument against me is to say, I got something wrong. Some fact I'm relying on is in fact false. Some information I've relied on is in fact false. And they're just left with waffling, right? We must be mindful. We must listen, let Brett dominate the conversation and tell us about his childhood, and it's never about anyone, and we must be nice to each other, and there's nothing substantive in anything they say. And these poems, it's like, no. If you really want people to do anything, just have a list of bullet points and say, we must do A, B, and C all the way to X, Y, and Z. Yeah, that's all they're left with. They're microaggressions. And Olson, well, I'm inclined to think of him as honest, and he's trying his best. I mean, considering this huge weight of nonsense that he's required to believe in, that is making him stupid. Because if you think you're covering up for this massive lie that's been growing since the 4th century, then you can't. How can you sleep well? How can you sleep well when all the dust that you've been shoving under your carpet makes you trip over it every day? Makes you fall in your face, and you're refusing to admit it because, obviously something is making your politicians, your ruling classes corrupt, and you can't deal with it by voting because the system is rigged. And so you will be suffering from degeneracy, from more corruption and more mental illness and more suicides. They actually want to get rid of you. They want you to get into your coffin before you're dead. And I saw a great video of what I imagine the matriarchy would like us to do to ourselves. And I may be able to display it. I think I did retweet it. Aha, I have got it. Good. Close window. Share screen. Map screen. Music. Have I done it? I'm sorry for the delay. I'm not as... Yes, I've done it. Okay, I trust a point has been made. Have they done their stream? Have they started? So I hope the point is taken that what the robots you saw were doing, getting into their box and fitting themselves in so the box can be closed on them, is what the matriarchy wants us to do. It's basically like bad parents who wish they never had children and want their children dead and gone. How can this be fixed? Well, it could still, in theory, be fixed by any of the men talking to me before their estuary protocol, and then they can talk to each other about what I said to them, right? If they dared, but they don't. I was going to make a list of the upcoming estuaries. Let it not be said that I'm, entirely hostile to what they're trying to do. Where can I find a list of forthcoming estuary meetings? They all seem to be a year ago or something. Visit Estuary Hub. Okay, let's go to Estuary Hub, because that was what the boys were talking about yesterday on Luke's stream. And I thought, wouldn't it be nice if they were all talking about secular Quranism and their estuary meetings? I think they will anyway. Because, well, find an estuary near you. And you have to say conversation in the Paul van der Klee way. Well, anyway, you can go there and okay, let's go down the list. So there's one in Belfast, there's one in Ontario, there's one in Carlsbad, which is, I'm not sure which country it is. Oh, it's near Santa Fe. There's one in Indiana. There's one in Costa Mesa in California. There's one in Culver City Estuary in California. There's an estuary in BCS. That's Texas. Estuary Chania in Greece. Estuary in West Melbourne. Is that Australia? I'm not sure. There's one in Glastonbury, is there? There's one in Maryland, in Frederick Estuary. There's one in Indiana. There's one in Chino. There's one in Irving in Texas. There's London. That's run by Teo. There's one in LA. And there's one in Birmingham, Alabama. There's one in Michigan City. There's one in Muskegon in Michigan. There's one in Indiana. And there's one in New York City. And Grand Rapids in Michigan. There's one in Northwest Virginia. There's one in Nova Scotia. I know somebody in Nova Scotia. But it is not. It's not a regular one. Olympia Estuary in Washington. Ottawa Estuary in Ottawa. There's one in Philosophia Bergensis. Sounds Scandinavian. Yes, it's in Norway, I think. Pittsburgh in Philadelphia. No. Yes, it is Philadelphia. Port Orchard in I don't even know. Where does it say? It doesn't give a state. Portland in Oregon. Riverside Estuary in California. STL1 Estuary Group in St. Louis. And Sacramento Estuary, that's run by Paul van der Klee. I think that's it. I think St. Louis is in Montana. No, I was trying to work out what the okay, so there's more. There's one in South Wales, and there's one in Glenview, which is Illinois, and there's a St. Louis Estuary Group in Montana. I know this is a bit boring, but let's just list them all. There's one in South Africa, in Stellenbosch. There's one in Toronto. There's the Washington Zoom Estuary, the Twin Cities MN Estuary, Minneapolis, Vancouver, Warsaw, West Michigan, Whitchurch in Hampshire, England, Winnipeg Estuary, Zurich, Switzerland, and one in Germany, the Astor Rhein-Neckar, and then it's in Greek. So imagine if they all started talking about secular Quranism.